We are focusing still on early childhood development and its importance of nurturing our children, especially from that early age of birth. Still with us is early childhood development specialist Marie-Louise Samuels, a retired director of ECD from the Department of Basic Education. Educationalist Yandiswa Xhakaza, also CEO of NGO Nali'Bali, and HCI Foundation CEO Jamala Safari. Mr. Safari, let me start with you. On the website of HCI Foundation, my attention was drawn to one of the projects that you are supporting. And I'm asking this on the back of our previous discussion a short while ago around about the safety of children, the importance that no child must be harmed, as Ms. Samuels was saying. The HCI Foundation, together with other donors, is funding 14 caregivers in 7 safe parks. What are those? What are safe parks?
Okay. Well, I think this is really a vision that we've got going forward. For us, we want to work what we'll call, we want to develop what we'll call, your excellence ECD centers or centers of excellence. And the idea here is to say, well, the investment shouldn't be just we throw money at you, but it's to walk this journey with you and to ensure that, the ECD center benefit, but the community at large benefit. And what we're trying to do here is to start at an early level, really just to say, well, what do you have and what we can work with? And we try to identify, we've got 8 elements that we look at. We look at, among others, are you providing nutritious meal, or every kid is receiving a nutritious meal? Are your practitioners well trained? We look at really quite a number of things. And the idea is for us is to say, how can you help you actually to ensure that every aspect of a holistic ECD development is embedded in your program. Then we walk that journey with you. But ultimately, while we're doing that, then we have to see, well, do we have books? Do we need the likes of Nali'Bali to come and work with you? Do we need the likes of Lunchbox to come and provide meal? Do we need the likes of WordWorks or Book Ducks to come and work with you? So basically, we unlock potential by bringing a lot of partners to work with all these NGOs. And ultimately, then we start looking at what the future of the children who are in this program. What will happen to them? Do you have primary schools that these ECD centers are linked to? Because ultimately, while we're doing the work in the ECD space, we have to ensure in the grade R, we have to ensure that schools that will receive these children are also ready. So we have now to start saying, how do we track, how do we link this ECD or this grade R to primary, well-functioning primary schools, so that ultimately there can be that pathway for the child to move from an ECD center to grade 1.
So it's all about creating, that pathways. I'm just asking this, you work with other donors in this kind of programs, and I'm fascinated by that because historically one got the impression that corporates are competing in the CSI space so that their brand is the one that is being seen and then the community can see whatever. But it seems like from what you are saying, the other donors that you are working with are now aware that we can't sort this out as an island, that no one person can do it all, that in fact we is stronger than me.
Yes, ultimately that's critical. I think the way we have to do this is we have to work together. There is no competition here. It's really about the future of the nation. We all want to see the nation prospering. And what we do, I can't claim that it's a foundation only, HCI Foundation only doing this or supporting these NGOs. Not at all. Actually, we can't manage to do it on our own. But we've got a lot of partners. You've got the likes of DG Marie Trust coming on board. You've got the likes of many other corporate foundations that will come on board, fund different part of the programs. Somebody might be funding teacher development, for example. Another one is funding, nutrition. Another one is funding infrastructure. And that's how we are working together to ensure that that pathway is created, that the future of our children is secure. Yeah. But what we need as well is government to come on board strongly and to hold our hand, because ultimately, government creates a vision, and we have to support that vision. That's what we want to see, working all of us together to ensure that we succeed.
Yeah, and the policies exist, the regulations exist, Ms. Samuels told me, but we are not implementing them effectively. Hence the perception, Ms. Samuels, that, as I said, Ellen, you corrected me, it's highly unregulated. I guess there are regulations, but they are not being enforced. Ms. Xhakaza, let me bring you in here and say, from your side, your background as Nali'Bali is about the culture of reading.
Correct.
Okay? We've mentioned safety. We've mentioned no child must be harmed. We've heard from the HCI Foundation how partnerships are being formed for the benefit of the child and how important it is to reimagine a better future for all our children, as the UNICEF is saying this year in terms of World Children's Day. From Nali'Bali's perspective, culture of reading. Are we getting the message in South Africa? Because every year when we hear about this global research on numeracy and literacy, it's like we're lagging behind. I've interviewed a number of South African authors who are beginning to write more and more in our own indigenous languages to assist in the reading. What's your experience in that space? Because reading is a big, important foundation in ECD.
Absolutely. So you can't learn if you can't read, right? So it's the basis for all other learning. And so we cannot move beyond the ability to read. But Nali'Bali's standpoint is also that it is important, yes, to teach children how to read using phonetics and so on and the technicalities of how to read. But if we don't get the culture right, we're not doing justice to the future reading of this country.
What do you mean the culture, right? What is it?
So the culture of reading is really a child who is engrossed and loves and enjoys text, right? And we know the benefits of that. A child can travel through a book to a different country, to a different world. And that creates creativity, innovation, which we need. And so reading is so critical. But what we've also learned at Nali'Bali is that if you don't write context-specific stories that children can relate to in languages that they speak and understand, you lose them. They lose interest. And so that is why it's important for us to then create stories, firstly, where children can identify themselves, but also in the languages that they understand.
Yeah, so not just the written word, but also the visual language needs to relate or connect with the child.
Correct. Correct. I need to see a black girl in the text, in illustrations, because then I can see myself in the text. And that might even inspire me to write a book one day. But reading is such a critical skill.
What are your challenges currently as Nali'Bali? Because to enable that culture of learning, you need the right kind of content. Are you finding it easy to access in your programs?
We are also seeing a rise in emerging authors and even seasoned authors who are beginning to write in African languages. But Nali'Bali spends a lot of money translating text, translating stories. We receive a lot of stories in English that we have to translate in the other 10 official languages, which is very costly. So that's one of our biggest challenges. And so we do encourage writers to submit stories to Nali'Bali in their home languages so that we can translate isiXhosa to English and not always English to isiXhosa or isiZulu. Yeah. But yeah, that's where...
Okay. Ms. Samuels, when you hear that there are efforts in the private sector, like HCI Foundation, to be supporting the likes of Nali'Bali, who are also battling to make sure that our children are getting the right kind of food of the mind in terms of the content of what they are reading and stuff like that. I mean, cost-wise, it's a little bit, can be prohibitive. What are your thoughts?
You know, Dan, I think that we as a nation must take responsibility for what's happening to the children. We are not a nation that reads. And unfortunately, if a child does not see the adults reading, the chances that they would get excited about reading is very slim. And so I think that as a nation, we should start promoting reading. We should also be, not apologetic about challenging what children have in terms of toys, in terms of books, what are the images that children are exposed to. And I think that it saddens me at this time of the year when I walk into Checkers and I see so many white dolls. I say to myself, is this the majority population in the country? And I think that as a nation, we are not doing enough. And so therefore, the children are the ones that are bearing the brunt of what it is that we are not doing. I think that the issue about working together is not working together as NGOs, working together as government departments, but rather that we should be collectively putting our money together and saying, if this is the future that we want for our children, how do we work together? How do we pool our resources in order to ensure that we realize that vision that we have for our children? And unfortunately, that's not what happens. Most times, government departments, they work independently of one another. NGOs work independently of one another. And so there's a lot of duplication and there's a lot of wastage that we have. And I believe that the money that is invested in ECD in the country, both from government and the private.
Oof. We lost her. She was just making a very important point. We'll try and get Ms. Samuels back when we continue, because she was saying she believes that the money that government spends and the private sector spend together on ECD must, and then we lost her there. Oh, you back, Ms. Samuels. Sorry, we lost you there for a while. Just that last point you were making, you believe that the money that the private sector and the government are spending must do what?
I believe that the money that government is spending in the sector, which is over 3 billion, together with the money that the private sector has, which is also in their billions, if we put this money together and we work together towards a common plan, I believe we'd be able to see much better results than what we see at the moment. But we are working in our silos and we don't want to be working together generally.
Okay, Ms. Samuels, thank you very much for repeating that point, and I'm glad you are back, because we're heading to the final segment of our discussion here, where we'll get final thoughts from our panelists on the future of ECD in South Africa as we celebrate World Children's Day, the 20th of November. In fact, I'm going to ask each of them to give me 3 things that they think we should focus on. So you must start thinking now about what are these 3 things, Ms. Xhakaza, Mr. Safari, and Ms. Samuels. Stay with us.